Hi, Augusto. Loud and clear, I think, now.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Hey, let's get started. Thanks for joining, Jay and Augusto. It's a pleasure to have you on board. Really happy to talk to you guys all about building the cross-chain future in Cosmos. My name is James Bailey. I'm the CEO of SubQuery. We are a cross-chain data indexer. We work on many different Cosmos chains, including Archway and Kronos, but many other chains and other ecosystems as well, like Ethereum, Near, Avalanche, Polkadot, and many more. It's a pleasure to talk to you though, because obviously building dApps and building applications on top of these chains is a big thing that we focus on. And so I'm very excited to be talking to two different zones in the interchain that specialize in this kind of thing. Maybe we'll start with some introductions. Jay, do you want to hit us off in terms of telling us a bit more about Kronos?
Right, awesome. Thanks for having me, James. Hi, everyone. My name is Jay. I lead ecosystem growth and initiatives at Kronos. So Kronos is an EVM layer 1 chain built on the Cosmos SDK, right? So we are interoperable across various EVM networks and within Cosmos itself via IBC. Right, Kronos is supported closely by Crypto.com, right, one of the leading exchanges in the world, and a lot of Crypto.com retail users are essentially users on Kronos itself. Right? And we have been live on mainnet close to 2 years already. So very excited to be here today to share more about Kronos. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Augusto, do you want to tell us about Archway?
Yes, for sure. My name is Augusto. I'm a principal engineer at Phi Labs, a company contributing to the Archway network protocol. And Archway is a Cosmos native layer 1 smart contract protocol that uses Cosmos as its main execution engine. And the goal of Archway is to provide an economical model that helps dApp developers to build a sustainable environment for their dApps. So Archway focuses on that by building the reward mechanism that is inside the protocol engine itself that helps the dApp developers to capture the value that they bring to the chain.
Awesome. Now, maybe Augusto, maybe you can start us off. A question. So, Archway is one of the newer zones in Interchain. What made you guys decide to build on Cosmos? You started your journey, I'd say, was it about a year ago?
Yeah, we started it around 2021, and
how time flies, eh?
Yes, exactly. Many things happening during this time. Archway started incubated inside Tendermint, the creator of the Cosmos SDK, the Cosmos network, and as time went by, we branched out and focused on building the protocol, and we launched it in July this year. The reason why we decided to build on Cosmos is because Cosmos is the pioneer in cross-chain communication. It was the first one to establish itself with this kind of technology. So it was a great advantage for Archway as well to be able to bring this to the dApp developers, to don't be another isolated layer 1 protocol, because it wouldn't make sense. To break out of those silos, Cosmos network was Cosmos SDK was the best technology for that.
And you, Jay, how did you kind of come around to Cosmos when you're looking at where to build Kronos itself?
Right. So I think like what Augusto said, the Cosmos SDK, it's an incredible stack which provides a lot of modularity that allows like blockchain engineers to build out the blockchain tech stack, right? And because it's so modular, at a point of time, Kronos Labs was working very closely with the Fmos team, where the Fmos team developed Ethermint, and that allowed EVM to be built on top of the Cosmos SDK, right? So this flexibility of being able to build like Solidity contracts on Cosmos itself was very attractive. By the time to market, building on top of Cosmos SDK allowed for this very seamless and battle-tested deployment of a new blockchain. I think that was very, very valuable. Also, Cosmos SDK allowed for this IBC, inter-blockchain communication between various Cosmos chain. Right? I think that at a point of time, Bridges was very, very nascent in the space today, and IBC, that technology was years ahead of what other type of cross-chain communication platforms had back then, right? And it was battle tested minimized. So I think it made a lot of sense to build on top of Cosmos SDK to develop an EVM chain.
In a way, in a summary, basically, you're saying that Cosmos has the benefits of that cross-chain application. It also comes with a lot of battle-tested functionality and code that's been in place and put in practice by many other zones. Do you think, these days, recently, Optimism has been doing their OP stack, and a lot of other layer 2s and roll-ups have been doing similar things. Do you think they're trying the same thing as Cosmos did or pioneered?
Yeah, so right now there's definitely more options for any application developer or blockchain ecosystem to build out a blockchain, right? OP stack, the ZK hyperchains. I think all of them are great options to build on. As like great alternatives to Cosmos SDK. Cosmos SDK of course have its pros as well. I think the pros of IBC is still something that is unparalleled as compared to other tech stacks. Of course, I know that like on the ZK hyperchain side, they are trying to do some like cross-chain communications between ZK chains. But I think the value that the Cosmos SDK brings to the table, it is still very, very strong and very, very attractive, battle tested to a lot of developers out there.
One thing I note that's different between your two projects' direction is that Chronos J is kind of focused on the Ethernet side, the EVM compatibility, and providing a great place for people to build and deploy EVM-based applications, while Archway has gone down the Cosmosm native path and focused on providing Cosmosm-based applications a good home. Interesting that you've taken those different stances. I don't know if there's going to be commentary around why you did that.
Okay, I guess I can go first. So, yeah, the reason why we chose Cosmos, it's because it's a new technology that focuses on fix some issues present in other smart contract platforms and languages. And the main benefit we saw with Cosmos is that since it compiles to WebAssembly, in theory, it allows developers to use whatever language they are familiar with as soon as it compiles to WebAssembly, right? Right now, the main toolkit or SDK to build for Cosmos is written in Rust, but there's some work going to add support for the Go language as well, which brings a new group of developers. And there are other studies to use other languages as well, like TypeScript, whatever, anything that can compile to WebAssembly. And that's the main benefit we saw as well. But as it is with any new technology, there is also this friction with educating developers and building tooling and providing all the support necessary for them to learn this technology and focus on building their business rather than just fighting with the compiler. So because of that, we at Phi Labs, we also saw that we had to focus on developer education and bring like a well-curated content. So providing good documentation, top tooling for them, and help the developer community as much as possible to unlock their use cases.
Yeah, so for Chronos, there were a couple of reasons why we went with EVM on Cosmos. I think at the point of early 2021, when we were making the assessment, there was a gap in the Cosmos space where there wasn't like Solidity developers couldn't build on Cosmos because there wasn't a ecosystem that allowed them to tap on Cosmos users using Solidity code bases. Right, and probably at that point of time, only BNB chain, which is also an EVM chain built on Cosmos SDK, allowed for that. We saw that there was a gap in the market at that point of time to offer this development experience to Solidity developers to tap into both EVM Cosmos community, and then that makes sense at that point of time. Number two, just on the sheer volume of Solidity developers as compared to like Cosmosm-based developers at that point of time. We wanted to tap on this larger developer base, right? And I think that was also one of the key reasons And also there were a lot of like toolings that was available to EVM, such as like native explorers from Etherscan, node and RPC providers that was already integrated with other EVM chains. It was easier at a point of time to get things going with a lot of infra setup, a lot of developers ready to build. Right? I think that was the thinking that that kicked us off with the EVM implementation on Cosmos.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? You bring a lot of this existing infrastructure and tooling from other ecosystems across, and it kind of saves a lot of time, especially in the developer education. We can talk about it later. But Jay, does that kind of make it harder for you for Kronos in terms of IBC? Because IBC, I assume, is kind of designed to natively work better or closer with Cosmosm. Does having the Ethermint kind of layer on top of that make it harder to deal with IBC, or is it fine?
Right. So it's an additional step that we have to put in place. So within our Cosmos SDK, there's an additional module called Kronos, which allows us to essentially create a representation of IBC tokens, Cosmos level, to create a representation of it on the EVM level. Right. So right now there are several tokens which have representations on the EVM and on the Cosmos level. So essentially it's a bit more difficult in the sense that the Kronos engineers would have to create these various representations on both the EVM and Cosmos level, so that whenever, like for example, Atom, its IBC transfer over from Cosmos Hub to Kronos, right, a user on Kronos would be able to see it on their MetaMask. Versus if let's say this mapping isn't created, if let's say I send, if I send a token that from let's say Osmosis to Kronos that might not have been, that this representation is not created on the EVM layer, right? A user that is using MetaMask wouldn't be able to see it on their MetaMask wallet, right? So there is this additional lift that's required on the engineering side. Yeah.
But I assume you've kind of dealt with that mostly, and you've done a lot of work to make examples for developers that want to build and start embracing these technologies.
Yeah. So a couple of developers on Kronos that are building like liquid staking, for example, where if a user on Kronos holds Atom and wants to stake Atom, right? The smart contract allows so there'll be this function, a smart contract, which will bridge the Atom from Kronos via IBC to Cosmos Hub to stake it. Right. So I think it allows for this like cross-chain applications to be built out.
And you, Augusta, like obviously, with Cosmos being a newest thing, if you look up how to build a dApp in Web3, you often find a Ethereum EVM-based lesson or learning path, and you kind of have to replicate or rebuild a lot of that for Cosmosm. How has that affected, the work that you guys do at Archway to make sure that there's enough educational material that people can start building on Cosmosm rather than EVM?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. Yeah, so that's exactly the focus we've been trying to give in our documentation, and that's something we've been actively looking at, because to bring more users to Cosmos as well, it's important to tap into this other pool of developers that are already familiar and they have their dApps running in written in Solidity. So this is a source of material we are trying to translate now, bringing more content like explaining about patterns or how to replicate some sort of, as I said, patterns from EVM into Cosmosm. We have we have like GitHub discussion we've been working on for such kind of contents. But it's also one other thing we see it's important are tools that help developers to translate whatever code they have into Cosmosm. So I know this is something available, for example, in other languages. Like, I think Solana, they have like a compiler that you can translate your Solidity codes to run in Solana. So that's something that we are also looking into, to bring like some sort of compiler that can simply understand what is in Solidity and bring to Cosmosm. For sure, there are some technical complications on that, because there are some things that work in a certain way in Cosmosm that are designed like that to actually avoid some pitfalls that might happen in the EVM, for example, like double entry attacks, these kind of things. This is something that Cosmos focuses on fixing. So it's a bit hard when you have to do this sort of translation, but it's also from the developer point of view. You can think about, okay, there are less attack vectors that you need to care about. That's how you could see that as well. So yeah, that's basically it.
So I've got a question. When a developer comes to you with a new idea of a dApp that they might want to build on your chain, is there anything that you look for that instantly kind of tells you, or is like a green flag, or on the other hand, red flag, that makes you think this is a great idea for a dApp that will leverage the benefits of Archway or Chronos, it will leverage the benefits of Cosmos, of IBC, it's really uniquely suited for building on our network? Is there any kind of flags, red or green, that you look for around those kind of, when people come to you around those questions?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that we typically look out for when we speak with new developer teams. I think number one, the team itself, because most of the projects are very, very early stage. So we often make an assessment on a team, whether they have like prior experiences in building on other chains, or have they been like during hackathons, having good performances, and have developed a very strong MVP that can potentially be developed into a production application. I think the team itself, it's sometimes a team has strong founders. It's often by itself a very, very strong green flag. Right? For Chronos, most of our DeFi ecosystem has like most of the verticals have some form of applications available, like DEXs, money markets, liquid staking, yield aggregators, yield farms, etc. We often look out for like new developers that are trying to build something that is a net new application on a chain. So like instead of a fork of Uniswap V2, right, perhaps they are building something that is more innovative, building on top of the DeFi primitives on the chain itself, right? So essentially addressing a gap in our developer ecosystem rather than just forking an existing application and then wrapping it with a different UI. I think we are looking out for those kind of net new innovations in the space, which is getting more and more scarce today, when it's very easy, when everything is open source and very easy to just fork a code base from GitHub and then spin off a UI quickly. And then I think one other thing is that we are always very on a special lookout for like security issues. So it's always good that projects have their code bases audited, run through multiple times of QA, to make sure that when they launch their projects on testnet or mainnet, right, testnet they're able to eradicate all the issues, and then mainnet, right, it's as little attack vectors as possible. Right? I think security has been a big issue in the space in the recent months, and it's becoming more and more of an important factor for us.
Augusto, are there any specific things that you look for, or like that you get excited by when a team comes through and says, I'm building this kind of application?
Yeah, actually what Jay shared, very similar to what we look for as well. I think what I can add is that for Archway specific use case, we also look for teams that are trying to leverage the rewards model from the chain, and use cases that try to also leverage the IBC communication. So teams that bring like really innovative and unique use cases that are able to leverage and compose their dApps across the functionality available on different chains. I think those are green flags we really look into.
I want to talk about incentives soon, but before I start that, I've been asked to share a Zeli code. So if you're listening and you're listening for the Zeli secret code word, for everyone participating in SubQuery Zeli campaign, the secret code word is Cosmos is king. That's Cosmos is king, all in one word and in lowercase. So no spaces, all lowercase. Cosmos is king. Back to incentives though. You two different projects are kind of doing things different ways. So Archway specifically, you've kind of designed incentives for dApp builders into your core model. How have you done so, Augusto?
Yeah. So Archway works with three different incentivization models. So the first one are gas rebates. So usually on any Cosmos chain, the gas used for the smart contract execution goes straight to the validator. And in Archway, this gas is split 50-50 between the validator and the smart contract executed. This percentage is set by governance, so anyone, so at any point the community can request to change that via governance proposal. And the second model are the inflation rewards. So as every block is generated, it has its own inflation, and the inflation in Cosmos chains, vanilla Cosmos chains, they go also to the validators. But actually, it's at 25% goes to the dApps and 75% to the validators. Again, it's another parameter that can also be customized via governance proposal. And the third one are the contract premiums. So this is a extra fee that the dApp developer can set in their smart contract. So for any transaction happening with their smart contract, there will always be this extra fee being asked for. So this goes 100% to the dApp, to the smart contracts. And yeah, it's an opt-in feature. The developer can enable or disable it anytime they want. Yeah, and those are the main three models. And the rewards or the tokens that the smart contract will generate can be directed to any address the developer wants. So this can be either a wallet or another smart contract. So it's interesting because this allows that developers to, for example, forward those funds to a DAO and have the community to decide on how to use those rewards and so on. So it enables many use cases with
yeah, it's
that.
very novel in terms of giving easy kind of payment rails or incentivization rails to dApp developers to easily monetize and reward their teams for these smart contracts they build. I also like the idea of maybe, like you could put a fee on the contract itself, and you could make that fee small enough and that it's automatically paid up to a charity, for example. I think that's pretty cool that you could automate, charitable giving with fees.
Yeah, exactly. That's also a possible use case as soon as we have like charities or groups participating in the network. That's something that we can definitely promote.
And Jay, you've got a slightly different approach, but you kind of do have the benefit of something that many ecosystems don't have, which is a relationship with a major exchange. How do you is that what you leverage to incentivize this building Chronos? Because obviously the access to a large community. How do you kind of leverage that?
Yeah, so I think I think to answer this question, let's take a step back on like what are the real underlying motivations for a developer to select a chain to build on, and we kind of classified it into three key areas. Like number one, a developer, if he's a very young entrepreneur, he wants to build out the initial experience as in his entrepreneurship journey in Web3, right? That's one of the key motivation. Second motivation is that a developer wants to raise funds or gain revenue from building an application on the ecosystem. Right? So the ecosystem has to be a place where that empowers him to raise funds or earn revenue or profits. Right? And last reason that we see is that a developer who might not be too keen about on the financial side wants to build an application that can get users to use the platform itself. Right. So across this spectrum, on your point on our partnership with Crypto.com, it really taps into the third segment of developers that wants to get once their applications to have users, because we are able to have this funnel of retail users from Crypto.com who wants to have a decentralized experience outside of the exchange to come to Chronos to use the various DeFi applications like VVS Finance, which is a DEX on Chronos, Tectonic, a money market on Chronos, and plus all the NFT marketplaces on Chronos itself, right? So like this group of retail users, which we call them like CrowFam on Chronos. Essentially, it's a a pool of users that new developers will be able to tap on, will be able to market to, in order to grow on the chain, right? And in terms of incentives, we have various programs available on the chain tailored to different categories and different stages of developers. If let's say it's an indie developer or hackathon team that's super early stage, we have this thing called a builders program where we help them to subsidize, find discounts and provide credits from like various infrastructure requirement, for example, RPC services, node services, graph services, audit services, etc., which oftentimes is a bulk of a developer cost. We help them to subsidize or find credits in order to lower their initial bootstrapping costs, right? And then if let's say the project is more mature, we have a grant program which ties their growth on the chain to key metrics such as unique active wallets, interacting with their smart contracts, transaction volume, TVL of their protocol. And then if the application is more mature and looking to fundraise, we then have an accelerator program, which we put projects through a 12 weeks of program. Every week we have a workshop tailored to help them with their fundraising journey. We attach mentors to each project to give them tips and guidance on fundraising, and then we end things off with a demo day at the end of the 12 weeks where they can then pitch to our network of VCs on the chain itself, right? So it's 3 different programs tailored towards different kind of projects on the chain itself, and that's how we think about incentivizing developer growth on the chain.
Yeah, no, sounds good. Got a lot of different options there. We are over time, and I don't want to hold these 2 gentlemen for very much longer because I'm sure they're very busy. I got one more quick fire question for both of you. If you could suddenly have a lot more free time in your life and you could build your own dApp, what dApp would you build? And I'm kind of curious to know, like, what different ideas have you got out there of a dApp that you'd like to see being built on Cosmos, on your respective chains, that you think would really benefit the ecosystem?
Yeah, one thing I've been thinking about is a certifications dApp, something more focused on education, like schools and universities, that you could use the functionalities from the chain to actually validate if a certain student completed their syllabus, what they studied, and so on. So this would be extremely useful to remove a lot of bureaucracy from these kind of institutions.
Yeah, as for me, I am a strong believer of the real asset RWA narrative. I think this narrative has been here since 2017, but hasn't really taken off. I think there is a lot of potential for a very strong RWA protocol to be its own app chains, running its own validators, partnering with Oracle networks to make it happen. I would love to see a strong RWA application within Cosmos ecosystem itself.
Excellent. I love forecasting and prediction market application of Cosmos. I think it's interchain and with the IBC messaging, it would be pretty cool how you can connect those up to different zones to make predictions on what happens in other zones. But anyway, thank you very much for your time today, Jay and Augusto. I appreciate you taking the time of your day to join us. Really enjoyed listening to you and talking to you about different things on Cosmos, and how your approaches to attracting developers, building on applications on Cosmos, on Interchain, how similar they are, but also how slightly different they are. So thank you very much for your time, guys. It was a pleasure.
Right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Awesome, guys. And thanks to everyone for joining. And wherever you are in the world,